Bigfoot's entrance in Season 3 wasn't loud, but it didn't need to be. The moment he stepped back into the story, everything around him seemed to tighten. Like the whole world knew his presence meant danger for the wrong people and safety for the right ones. He returned with the same massive frame and calm stare. But there was something new beneath the surface, an energy you could feel even before he said a word. He walked like a man who had settled old debts and was ready to collect on new ones. There was no rush, no fear, and no hesitation. He moved with the confidence of someone who had survived too much to ever be shaken again. People in the room reacted instantly. Some straightened up, some stepped back, and a few tried to act brave but failed the moment his eyes met theirs. Bigfoot didn't threaten anyone, he simply existed, and that was threat enough. His power didn't come from shouting or showing off. It came from how steady he stood, how slow he breathed, how little he cared about the noise around him. He was a reminder that real strength doesn't need to prove itself, it's already known. But the real shift came from the way he interacted with Dwight's world. In earlier seasons, Bigfoot felt like a wild card, useful, dangerous, unpredictable. But now, in Season 3, he carried himself like a man who knew exactly where he belonged. Every choice he made pointed to something bigger than him. He wasn't just muscle anymore. He was a force that held the whole crew together, even if no one said it out loud. When Bigfoot spoke, the room listened, not because he was loud, but because he chose his words carefully. He didn't waste time explaining himself or arguing. He said what needed to be said and left the rest hanging in the air like a warning. And that silence, that heavy space he created, was more powerful than any threat. It told everyone that Bigfoot didn't bluff, didn't beg, and didn't break. This entrance reminded the audience why he stands out even in a show full of tough characters. Bigfoot isn't flashy. He isn't dramatic for attention. He is the calm before the storm. Quiet, steady, unstoppable. And in Season 3, that calm carried a new sharpness, like he was aware of the battles coming and already prepared for them. His arrival didn't just bring strength, it brought a shift in tone. The story grew darker, more serious, and far more interesting the moment he stepped in. Because when Bigfoot walks into a season, you know something massive is about to unfold, something only he can handle. What makes Bigfoot unforgettable in Season 3 isn't just his strength, it's the strange, almost accidental humor that follows him everywhere. He doesn't try to be funny. He doesn't smile at his own jokes. Most of the time, he doesn't even realize he's said something hilarious. And maybe that's the secret. His humor comes from the way he speaks with total seriousness, even when his words sound like they were dropped straight out of a heavyweight's brain at 3 a.m. But what makes this even better is how the rest of the crew reacts. Some try not to laugh, some stare in confusion, and others quickly agree just to avoid being the next story Bigfoot tells without meaning to. Somehow, his honesty hits harder than any punch he throws. There's a moment in Season 3 when Bigfoot tries to give advice, real advice, from the heart. But because he delivers it with the same tone he uses before breaking down a door, the entire room shifts uncomfortably. People listen, but they don't know if they should thank him or prepare to run. His words roll out heavy and slow, like he's lifting them one at a time. He talks about loyalty, responsibility, and keeping your word. And even though his sentences are simple, almost blunt, they land in a way that makes everyone stop and think. That's the power of Bigfoot's unintentional humor. It softens his edge while sharpening the truth behind his messages. But the funniest thing about him is how unaware he is of the fear he creates. In one scene, he walks into a space where everyone is already tense. He only wants to ask a normal question, but the moment he speaks, half the room jumps. Bigfoot pauses, confused, as if he can't imagine why anyone would react like that. He doesn't see what everyone else sees, a giant man with a stare that could freeze lightning. He never raises his voice or clenches his fists. He doesn't need to. His presence alone makes chairs squeak, cups get dropped, and conversations end mid. What he thinks is a normal conversation feels like an interrogation to everyone else. And somehow, that unintended intimidation becomes one of the season's funniest running themes. Even when Bigfoot tries to relax, the world refuses to relax with him. In quiet moments, he sits with this calm, thoughtful look as if he's solving a puzzle no one else knows about. People misunderstand his silence as judgment or impatience, but really, he's just thinking about something simple like where he left his jacket. These misunderstandings turn into small comedic gems throughout the season, giving the audience a break from the tension without ever making Bigfoot look foolish. Instead, it makes him strangely endearing. You start to see the softer layers under all that muscle. The guy who cares, who tries, who means well even if the world reacts to him like he's a walking earthquake. What truly stands out is how the show uses Bigfoot's serious humor to balance the darker moments. When the stakes get high and the energy turns sharp, Bigfoot brings an unexpected shift. One line from him can break the tension just enough to make the moment unforgettable, not because he cracks a joke, but because his view of the world is simple, honest, and sometimes unintentionally weird. And the crew, tough, experienced, battle-worn, never knows how to respond. Should they laugh? Should they agree? Should they quietly walk away before he says something even heavier? That confusion becomes a natural part of the comedy. By the time Season 3 reaches its middle chapters, Bigfoot has become more than just a tough guy in the background. He becomes the heartbeat of the show's humor, the type of humor that doesn't rely on punchlines but on presence. It's the kind of comedy that isn't written, it's simply lived through him. And the audience connects to it because it feels real. Bigfoot isn't trying to entertain, he's just being himself. And that authentic, unpolished personality creates moments that stay with the viewer long after the episode ends. What sets Bigfoot apart in Season 3 isn't just that he can fight, it's how he fights. When trouble rises, he doesn't rush in like someone desperate to prove himself. He steps forward slowly, almost calmly, like a man walking toward a problem he has already solved in his mind. There's a strange quietness in his movements, a steady confidence that makes the tension rise even before the first punch is thrown. Every opponent senses it. They feel the weight of a man who has endured storms far worse than any fight in front of him. And when he finally acts, it's never messy. It's controlled, sharp, and shockingly precise for someone built like a steel wall. One of the standout moments in Season 3 happens when Bigfoot finds himself surrounded by people who think they have the upper hand. They talk too much, they move too fast, and they underestimate him in all the usual ways. Bigfoot doesn't argue or threaten. He just watches them with that calm, unreadable stare. He studies their hands, their feet, the distance between each body, and when one of them makes the first move, everything explodes into motion, but only for a few seconds. Bigfoot acts with the kind of power that doesn't need repetition. One hit, one shove, one step in the right direction, and the entire room shifts. It's not just brute force. It's the understanding of how to break someone's confidence before breaking their stance. He moves like he's been doing this all his life. Because he has. What makes the action scenes so gripping is the way the show uses silence with Bigfoot. He doesn't grunt, shout, or roar. There's no angry explosion. Instead, the silence around him feels like a warning siren. When Bigfoot goes silent, the scene becomes heavier, tighter. You can hear the breathing of the other fighters, the shuffle of their shoes, the uncertainty creeping into their minds. Bigfoot uses that silence like a weapon. He lets his opponents panic first, because fear makes them sloppy. When he finally strikes, it isn't out of rage, it's out of necessity. It's clean, efficient, and final. In one fight, he takes down multiple attackers with a mix of raw power and frightening patience. He lifts one man as if he were weightless, pushes another into a wall hard enough to leave them frozen in place, and steps aside from a third without even looking rushed. The choreography around him feels almost unfair, because Bigfoot doesn't fight like a normal man. He fights like a force of nature. Every move is grounded, balanced, and deliberate. Even when someone lands a hit, Bigfoot absorbs it like it's nothing more than a tap on a door. And that is what unnerves everyone, his ability to remain standing, steady, and unbothered. But action alone isn't what deepens Bigfoot's impact in Season 3. It's the moments right after the fights. He doesn't stand over fallen enemies or brag about what he just did. Instead, he breathes out slowly, wipes his hands, and moves on, as if the entire scene was just another task he had to complete before focusing on more important things. And that is what makes his fighting style so compelling. He doesn't seek glory in violence. He simply accepts it as part of the world he lives in, a world where strength is sometimes the only language people understand. What truly elevates his action scenes is the emotional weight behind them. Bigfoot isn't fighting out of ego. He's fighting because someone needs protection, or because a situation has crossed a line he refuses to ignore. There's a moral clarity behind his violence. He won't start a fight, but he will end one with absolute certainty. And this quiet emotion, this unspoken loyalty, shapes his every move. Viewers don't just cheer for his punches, they feel the purpose behind them. By the end of each action scene, the audience realizes something powerful. Bigfoot's fights aren't about dominance. They're about responsibility. He steps into danger because someone has to. He throws himself into the heart of chaos because he understands what must be done. And with every swing, every block, every impossible display of strength, Bigfoot proves that his power isn't just physical, it's deeply human. He fights like a man who carries the weight of others on his shoulders. And that is what makes his action scenes not only thrilling, but unforgettable. Season 3 reveals a side of Bigfoot that most viewers never expected: his loyalty. Not the loud, dramatic kind, but the quiet, unshakable kind that shows up when things fall apart and everyone else pulls back. Bigfoot doesn't talk about loyalty. He lives it. He follows his own rules, guided by a simple belief that once he stands with someone, he stands with them until the end. And this season puts that belief to the test in ways that push him far beyond being the big guy in the room. The moments where he shows loyalty aren't flashy. They happen in the calm before chaos, in the middle of tense conversations, and in the silent choices he makes when no one is watching. These are the moments that show us who Bigfoot truly is. There's a powerful shift when he starts making decisions not based on orders, but on what he feels is right. It's subtle, almost easy to miss if you're not paying attention. He begins to think beyond himself, beyond the danger, and focuses on the people he cares about, people who often forget that he cares at all. For Bigfoot, loyalty means stepping into a situation even when everyone else is stepping out. It means standing guard when no one asks, or giving someone support even when he doesn't have all the words to say it. And although he's not great with speeches, the way he shows up speaks louder than anything he could say. There's a softness hidden beneath all the steel, a softness that comes out in moments when he chooses understanding over force. One standout moment in Season 3 shows Bigfoot caught between two paths, doing what benefits himself, or doing what protects someone he respects. Without hesitation, he chooses the harder path. He risks being misunderstood, judged, even punished, just to make sure someone else doesn't fall. It's loyalty through action, a kind of loyalty that hurts him more than it helps him. That's when the audience begins to see that Bigfoot's strength isn't limited to fights. It's the strength to carry burdens that aren't his, to stay when walking away would be easier, and to accept consequences in silence. He never asks for praise. He never expects recognition. He just does what he believes is right, even if he stands alone. What makes this loyalty even more emotional is the way Bigfoot handles conflict with people he cares about. Instead of exploding in anger or distancing himself, he becomes unusually calm. He listens more than he speaks. And when he finally responds, his words are simple but heavy, like each one has been shaped by experience rather than emotion. He doesn't defend himself, doesn't blame others, and doesn't try to look innocent. He owns his choices, even when they hurt him. And in those quiet, grounded moments, the audience sees a man who has learned the hard way that loyalty is both a gift and a wound. It's something he gives freely but often pays for privately. The turning point in Season 3 is when Bigfoot faces a situation that forces him to reveal a sliver of his inner world. He opens up, not completely, not dramatically, but just enough that you realize how much he keeps inside. His loyalty isn't built on blind devotion. It comes from pain, from lessons he learned long before we met him. He knows what it feels like to be left behind, betrayed, or underestimated. And that's why he refuses to do the same to others. He understands the weight of silence, the sting of abandonment, and the deep impact of someone choosing to stay. So he stays. He always stays. By the time the season reaches its emotional peak, Bigfoot has become more than muscle, more than comic relief, more than backup. He becomes a symbol of stability in a world full of shifting loyalties. When everything around Dwight shakes, Bigfoot remains firm, not loudly, not dramatically, but with the same solid presence that defines him. His loyalty becomes one of the strongest pillars holding the story together. And for the audience, these moments create a quiet, unforgettable respect for him. He may not say much, but every action shows a heart that is far bigger than his strength. Season 3 doesn't just highlight Bigfoot's power, it reveals the depth of his loyalty, shaping him into one of the most compelling and emotionally rich characters of the series.